You ever sit there and ask yourself, why am I the one putting in all the effort? Why am I the one who cares, who shows up, who tries, while they barely lift a finger? Yeah, that feeling, that quiet exhaustion you don't tell anyone about. Let me tell you something you already know, but keep avoiding. You're giving energy to people who don't value you. And the worst part? You're doing it because you hope that one day they finally will. But listen, people don't start valuing you when you work harder. They start valuing you when you stop giving them unlimited access. This video isn't about being cold or cutting people off for sport. It's about waking up to the reality you've been ignoring. You're not losing them. You're losing yourself by staying. And here's the truth you're probably afraid to admit. The signs were there from the beginning. The excuses you made. The bare minimum you accepted. The way you kept convincing yourself that maybe it's just a phase. Or maybe I'm overreacting. You're not overreacting. You're responding to disrespect. And before we go any further, I want you to hold on to one thing throughout this entire video. If someone truly values you, you won't have to beg for it, chase it, or earn it. By the end of this, you're not just going to understand why walking away is powerful. You're going to feel it. You're going to see exactly how much you've been tolerating, and how different your life becomes the moment you let go of the people who never deserved the version of you they were getting. All right, let's talk about the real problem. Here's the part almost nobody wants to say out loud. Not to their friends, not to themselves, not even in their own head. You've been staying around people who don't value you. Because the alternative scares you more than the disrespect does. Most people won't admit this. It's easier to say, it's complicated, or they're just going through something, or I know they care, they're just not good at showing it. But let's be real for a second. Think about the last time you reached out to someone first, again, because the silence felt awkward. Or the last time you apologized for something you didn't even do, just to keep the peace. Or that moment when you were excited about something, shared it with them, and they responded with that dry, low-effort, "oh, nice," that killed your whole mood. You tell yourself it's fine. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. But deep down, you felt it. You knew something was off. And here's the thing. You didn't pull back. You didn't demand better. You leaned in harder because you were afraid that if you didn't, the connection would fade completely. It's wild how we do this. We think that if we give a little more, try a little harder, prove ourselves a little further, the other person will finally wake up and treat us the way we've been treating them. It doesn't work like that. Let me give you a real example. Picture someone texting a friend saying, "Hey, you free this weekend?" The friend replies 3 hours later with a half-hearted, "Maybe, I'll see." And what do? They keep waiting. They keep checking their phone. They keep hoping for a follow-up message that almost never comes. Meanwhile, when that same friend needs something, they answer instantly. They rearrange their schedule. They jump. Or think about relationships. You plan the dates. You initiate the talks. You hold the emotional weight of everything. And when you finally bring it up, gently, respectfully, you get hit with, "You're being dramatic." Or worse, you expect too much. Expect too much? You're expecting the bare minimum, to be valued. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When you keep overgiving, people don't magically appreciate you more. They appreciate you less. Because in their mind, you've just taught them that your effort is cheap, that your presence is guaranteed, that no matter how little they give, you'll keep showing up anyway. This is the problem nobody talks about. The fear of losing someone keeps you stuck in situations where you're losing yourself. And here's where it gets even more twisted. You've convinced yourself that staying is the safe option, when in reality, it's the self-destructive one. Because every time you stay where you're undervalued, you send a message to yourself. This is what I deserve. This is as good as it gets. This is what I should accept. And the longer you stay, the more normal it starts to feel. Until eventually, you forget what being valued even looks like. But here's the twist you've been avoiding. The one that changes everything. All right. Here's the part that hits people in the chest every single time. When someone cares, you don't have to decode their behavior like it's some mystery puzzle. When someone values you, you don't have to chase, beg, or investigate. You feel it. Effort is obvious. But when someone doesn't care, you feel that too. You just keep pretending you don't. Let's break this down. Because people love overcomplicating what is actually painfully simple. Think about the moment someone texts you back hours later with the classic, "Sorry, I got busy." But somehow they were active on social media, posting stories, commenting, liking things. They weren't too busy. You just weren't a priority. Or think about the friend who says, "Let's hang soon," every time you ask to meet. But soon never comes. They've used that word so many times, it's basically background noise now. If they wanted to see you, they'd pick a day, a time, and show up. If they wanted to check on you, they would. If they wanted to fix things, they would. If they wanted to put effort into the relationship, they would. People move for what matters to them. They always have time for what they want to make time for. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine a person who's terrible at replying to you. But the moment they want something, suddenly they're typing fast, sending paragraphs, giving full attention. That's not a communication issue. That's a priority issue. Or think about relationships. Maybe you're dealing with someone who says, "I'm just not good at expressing my feelings." But the second they want something from you, they express themselves just fine. Their communication skills magically improve when it benefits them. Not wanting to do something and not being able to do something are two very different things. Most people hide the first one behind the second one. Here's the truth you don't want to admit because it hurts too much. You keep trying to impress people who aren't trying at all. You keep giving people chances that they aren't even aware they're getting. You keep holding the door open for someone who isn't even walking toward it. Meanwhile, the people who do value you, you barely notice them because you're too focused on chasing the one person who gives you the least. Here's something else to sit with. Imagine you're always the one initiating, always the one maintaining the relationship. If you stopped tomorrow, if you stopped reaching out, stopped checking in, stopped making the plans, would the connection even exist? If the answer is no, that tells you everything. A relationship that dies the moment you stop carrying it was already dead. And here's the part that hurts the most. You don't need more proof. You've already seen the truth. You've seen the signs and their patterns, their inconsistency, their excuses, their lack of effort. You just didn't want to believe it. But once you finally accept this one simple principle, if they wanted to, they would. You stop taking things personally because their behavior stops being a reflection of your worth and becomes a reflection of their priorities. And now that you see that clearly, here comes the real gut punch. The part nobody likes to face, but everybody needs to hear. Here's what almost no one realizes until it's way too late. Staying where you aren't valued doesn't break you all at once. It breaks you slowly, quietly, in tiny pieces you barely notice. Until one day, you wake up and don't even recognize yourself. People think the danger is losing the other person. But the real danger is losing you. Let's talk about what that actually looks like, because it's not always obvious in the moment. Imagine you keep reaching out to someone who never meets you halfway. At first, you think, it's fine, maybe they're busy. Then it becomes, maybe they're tired. Then it becomes, maybe I'm asking for too much. And eventually, it becomes, maybe I'm the problem. That's the first cost. You start questioning your own worth. Then there's the emotional fatigue, that constant feeling of trying, and getting nothing back. It wears you down in ways you don't talk about. You start feeling heavy, drained, unappreciated, not because you're weak, but because you're starving for the basic respect you keep giving everybody else. Here's another cost. You start lowering your standards without even noticing. Maybe you used to expect consistency, honesty, real effort. But now, you get excited over crumbs. A single good morning text makes your whole day because the bar is so low now that anything feels like a win. That's what staying where you're undervalued does. It teaches you to celebrate the bare minimum. Think about this example. You're in a friendship where you always show up. Birthdays, you're there. Hard days, you drop everything. Good news, you celebrate them like it's your own. But when you need something, they give you excuses. They disappear. They make you feel like your needs are an inconvenience. At first, you're disappointed. But if you stay long enough, disappointment turns into expectation. You stop sharing your excitement. You stop expressing your needs. You stop being yourself around them because you've learned it's safer to stay small. That's another major cost. You shrink. You stop showing up as the loud, bright, expressive version of yourself. Because the people around you only value you when you're quiet, low maintenance, and easy. And here's the dangerous part. The longer you stay, the more normal this treatment feels. You start confusing comfort with connection. You start confusing attachment with value. You start confusing history with loyalty. And slowly, you forget what healthy even looks like. Let me give you a harsh example. You try to express something that hurts you. They roll their eyes, or say you're being sensitive, or respond with that cold, dismissive, okay, that shuts down the entire conversation. After a while, you stop speaking up altogether, not because you've healed, but because you've learned that your feelings don't matter to them. And here's the last cost, the biggest one. When you stay in places that don't value you, you block yourself from the places that will. You can't receive real love while you're busy clinging to people who give you scraps. You can't meet better friends while you're holding space for people who wouldn't show up for you if it rained. You can't attract what you deserve while you're tolerating what destroys you. Staying isn't neutral. It takes something from you every single day. And once you understand that, you also understand why walking away isn't a rejection. It's a rescue. And the wild part? We're not even at the deepest truth yet. Because the question now is, why do people tolerate this for so long? That's where things get even more real. Now, here's the part most people never admit, even to themselves. You didn't stay because you were happy. You stayed because you were scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of starting over. Scared of admitting that someone you cared about never actually cared the same way. Scared of accepting that all the effort, all the investment, all the emotional labor wasn't enough to change them. That fear is powerful. And it's one of the biggest reasons people tolerate being undervalued far longer than they ever should. Let's break this down. One of the first reasons people stay is attachment, not connection, not love, not compatibility. Attachment. You get used to someone's presence. You get used to the routine, even if the routine hurts you. You get used to checking your phone for their name, even if they barely text back. You get used to waiting for them, even if they never show up. Here's a real example. Imagine a friend who always forgets your plans. You tell yourself, it's fine, that's just how they are. You adjust. You make excuses. You adapt. Not because it's okay, but because you don't want to lose them. You'd rather deal with inconsistency than deal with emptiness. Another reason people stay? Hope. Hope is beautiful in the right place, and absolutely destructive in the wrong one. You keep holding on to who they could be. You remember the good days. You replay the early moments when they were kind, attentive, invested. Those moments that felt like previews of something real. But here's the truth. You're in love with the potential, not the reality. You're holding on to the highlight reel, not the actual movie. You think, they're stressed. They're overwhelmed. They'll change. They'll get better. They'll come around. And while you're building excuses for their lack of effort, they're building comfort in your tolerance. Meanwhile, there's another reason people stay. And this one is heavy. Nobody wants to feel replaceable. There's a deep fear that if this person doesn't value you, maybe nobody else will. So you stay, even though your heart knows better, because you've convinced yourself that this is the best you can get. You start believing things like, maybe this is just how relationships are. Maybe this is normal. Maybe I'm too demanding. Maybe I should be grateful for what I have. You're not demanding. You're not ungrateful. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for the bare minimum. But when you stay long enough, the bare minimum starts to feel like a privilege. Here's another reason people tolerate it. They've invested too much. It's the emotional version of not wanting to leave a restaurant because you already paid for the food, even though the food was terrible. You think, I've already given so much. I've already tried so hard. I can't just walk away now. So you stay longer. You try harder. You bend more. You sacrifice more. Not because it's working, but because you want to believe your investment will pay off. And here's the wildest part. Some people stay because deep down, they think they can fix the other person. You think your love will change them. Your patience will soften them. Your loyalty will inspire them. You think you can be the exception, but you're not fixing them. You're enabling them. And while you're doing all this emotional heavy lifting, here's what they're doing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because why would they change when you've shown them they don't have to? This is the trap. You stay because you care. They stay because you tolerate. Two very different reasons. Two very different levels of effort. Two very different outcomes. And the longer you stay, the worse the cost becomes. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. But here's the good news. The moment you see this clearly, everything changes. Because now, we get to flip the entire story. And that's where the power shift begins. Here's the part nobody talks about. The moment you walk away from someone who didn't value you, everything shifts. Not slowly, not subtly, immediately. Because walking away isn't just a decision. It's a power move. Let's break it down. First, your self-respect comes back. And it comes back fast. You don't even realize how much you've been draining your own self-worth until the moment you stop chasing someone who couldn't care less. It's like suddenly remembering who you were before they dimmed your light. You wake up with a little more clarity, a little more strength, a little more of that weight. Why was I even putting up with that energy? It hits you that you were starving for something you deserved the whole time. Effort, attention, reciprocity, care. And now that you've stepped away, you can finally feel how heavy it was to carry a one-sided connection. Here's another part of the shift. Your peace returns. There's no more overthinking, no more waiting for replies, no more decoding mixed signals, no more analyzing tone, timing, or emojis just to figure out if someone still gives a damn. Walking away is quiet, but the peace that comes with it is loud. Then comes the part nobody expects. Your energy clears up. All that effort you were pouring into the wrong person suddenly becomes available again. You start laughing more. You start focusing on yourself again. You start feeling lighter, more confident, more grounded, because you're not emotionally bleeding for someone who never bothered to offer a bandage. And then, there's the most ironic part. The part that always surprises people. The part that hits harder than anything else. The moment you walk away, the people who took you for granted start noticing. Your silence becomes louder than all the messages you ever sent. Your absence becomes heavier than your presence ever felt to them. Your withdrawal forces them to face a reality they never expected. You were the one holding everything together. Let me give you a real example. You stop texting first. Suddenly they pop up with a "Hey stranger" message. Not because they suddenly value you, but because they notice the energy they were draining is gone. Or you stop checking on them. Suddenly, they want to know if everything's okay. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you that made their life easier. And here's where the real power shift happens. You stop caring about their reaction, because when you walk away for real, you're not doing it to get a response. You're not doing it to make a point. You're not doing it to hurt them. You're doing it because you finally realize something that changes everything. You don't need to be where you're tolerated when you can go where you're appreciated. And once that realization hits, you can't unsee it. You can't unfeel it. You can't go back to begging for the kind of effort that should have been there from day one. Walking away isn't losing something. It's clearing space. It's making room for people who actually show up. People who match your energy. People who appreciate your presence instead of exploiting it. And the best part? Walking away doesn't just change how they see you. It changes how you see yourself. You become stronger, sharper, more aware, less willing to tolerate anything beneath your standards. Because once you walk away from the wrong people, you stop being afraid of walking away. Period. And that leads us straight into the next part. How to actually do it, even when it hurts. You don't need a dramatic speech. You don't need to scream your worth. You don't need a big exit announcement. Just quietly shift. Reduce your effort. Stop over-explaining. Stop pouring into empty cups. Take back your emotional access. You're not doing this to get a reaction. You're doing it because you're done negotiating your value. And once you do this, the moment you stop chasing validation, you become someone people treat differently. Your time becomes precious. Your presence becomes selective. Your silence becomes powerful. Only people who value you stick around. Everyone else falls away because they can't benefit from the old version of you anymore. And that's exactly who you were meant to become.